Welcome, 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 my lovely brothers and sisters. Welcome again to this live book reading. As you can see, I am reading from a book, Synthetic Superintelligence and the Transmutation of Humankind, a roadmap to the singularity and beyond. It is a book that explains in short, in actuality, many facets of the dangers that humanity is facing for quite some time now, by being lured and steered into the singularity dash metaverse and everything that is correlated to it. All right, I will do today 3 live book readings. My spirit gave me the chapters that I have to bring to you. One is also about the living library, which we in actuality are in. The planet that we are living on is a living library, and humanity is unfortunately, due to the lack of doing informance and self-education, humanity is terraforming this planet into something that is completely death-based. Humanity is in actuality destroying the living library that this planet is. And it's about the time, and it's about time that we start to realize this, and that we start to realize that we are living in a living library and on a living library. It is the biggest library we can imagine. Nature, animals, the sky, the planets, the air, the sun, the water, every grass, every plant, every insect carries information. This is one of the reasons that many insects are now being replaced with robotoid insects, so that we cannot get the information to progress and develop ourselves, better said, our soul. We need to come to the realization that we are destroying the living library, and with this we are destroying the development and the developmental pathway of our soul. So let this sink into you, because this is very important to get to understand here. All right. Nanotechnology and the building of machines and robots from the inside out. My lovely brothers and sisters, for decades, at least 10 decades already, they are spraying nanobots. What is called chemtrails is not all about chemicals spraying over nature, over animals, and over us humans, but it is also the spraying of nanobots in the air. And through the rain, these nanobots come into the soil. We are eating them. We are inhaling them. We are drinking them because they are also added to the tap water. We are swimming in it because of the natural water that we are using to swim in. It is already in our clothing. You need to realize the dangers of all this that is going on. So this whole transhumanisticness BS agenda is already going on. All right. Nano means a billionth of something. The term nanotechnology could therefore theoretically refer to anything within technology where we work with particles a billionth of something. We are talking about particles on an atom level in this book. However, we are more specific when we use the term nanotechnology. We are here discussing nanotechnology in terms of building human-like machines from the atom level and up. Not only that, scientists working in this field are instructed to replicate biological humans as closely as possible when working with this technology. Then there are other definitions of nanotechnology in addition to the above. So let's examine two well-respected directionaries, and we will begin with the Merriam-Webster. So, simple definition of nanotechnology. The science of working with atoms and molecules to build devices, such as robots, that are extremely small. Full definition of nanotechnology. The science of manipulating materials on an atomic or molecular scale, especially to build microscopic devices such as robots. Now let us take a look at the Cambridge Free English Dictionary definitions and then compare. The science of making extremely small devices, the size of atoms and molecules in an area of science that deals with developing and producing extremely small tools and machines by controlling the arrangement of separate atoms. So not only is this technology used to build robots on the macro level, it is also used to build robots directly on the nano level. Robots that are a billionth in size compared with anything we can see on the macro level. Now we are talking about nanobots, again, particles on a cellular level that are already put in our bloodstream. The idea of being able to maneuver things, atom by atom, first became public in 1959 when scientist Richard Feynman said, "The principles of physics, as far as I can see, do not speak against the possibility of maneuvering things atom by atom." So he won the so-called Nobel Prize in 1965. And I need to say this whole Nobel Prize is just a farce and a fake thing, because it is nothing more than rewarding those who are all part of the proxies and minions of Marduk. Yeah, so Marduk is in actuality rewarding all these people by giving them a so-called Nobel Prize. Yeah, Alfred Nobel was also one of the proxies of Marduk. So Feynman's work then inspired scientists to expand on his work with the purpose of actually achieving what Feynman suggested was possible. So now, more than 50 years later, we can say with 100% certainty that Feynman was correct. Science has, to a large degree, achieved that goal. However, I want to alert the reader that it is all a dog and pony show, because this technology is millions or perhaps even billions of years old. Exactly. So what has been discovered in 1959 was already ancient old. But this technology is used against all life forms, and so used as a weapon for someone's dark, sinister, masochistic, machiavellistic, psychopathic agenda. This technology is an extraterrestrial in its origin. The exponential technological development we have experienced over the last so-called 150 years does not originate from the minds of some brilliant scientists who came up with ideas out of nowhere. No, the technology was given to them in dream state or directly by the alien invader force, also known as the Archon invader force. Some scientists have probably been more aware than others that they have had outside sources helping them to come up with their most brilliant inventions. One of them was Nikola Tesla, the so-called ingenious scientists in the early 20th century who developed this so-called free energy and invented things that could have been useful, very much so, to mankind if he hadn't been stopped by the controllers, admitted openly that he had help from extraterrestrials. The entire idea of nanotechnology is to have the atomic building block self-replicate. This is being experimented on and has to some degree already been accomplished. Not all of it is out in public yet, but it doesn't mean that it is not standing in line and waiting patiently to be rolled out. So not all of it is out in public yet. They do not want to reveal everything at once, because every revelation must be followed by an action. And if the world isn't yet ready for the action, certain revelations have to wait. So the multi-billion AI industry knows this all too well. And IBM, a giant in developing AI, agrees wholeheartedly, IBM states that new technology usually rather comes in short steps than giant leaps, and this is for many reasons. And know that this book that I'm reading from is written by Wes Penry. Because of self-replication capabilities, nanotechnology in the long term will be cheap. All right, scientists who have followed Feynman's line of thinking know that everything from the smallest particle up to the largest robot can, with atoms artificially put in the right sequence, self-replicate. This certainly sounds as so-called science fiction to many, but is not. But later in this book, we will see that our media and entire entertainment industries are already exposing this near future possibility, and they were already doing this since the invention of television. And especially in movies at the end of the 60s, this started to be rolled out. J. Storrs Hall explains in more detail how this works. I know it is a little technical, but I want to show how mRNA transferring the information from the DNA/genes in living organisms to specify certain gene expressions, is required in order to achieve this goal of self-replication. And here is a quotation from an article. Ribosomes manufacture all the proteins used in all living things on this planet. A typical ribosome is relatively small, a few thousand cubic nanometers, and is capable of building almost any protein by stringing together amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, in a precise linear sequence. To do this, the ribosome has a means of grasping a specific amino acid. More precisely, it has a means of selectively grasping a specific transfer RNA, which in turn is chemically bonded by a specific enzyme to a specific amino acid, of grasping the growing polypeptide, and of causing the specific amino acid to react with and be added to the end of the polypeptide. The instructions that the ribosome follows in building a protein are provided by mRNA, which is messenger RNA. This is a polymer formed from the 4 bases adenine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil, a sequence of several hundred to a few thousand such bases codes for a specific protein. The ribosome, so-called, reads this so-called control tapes sequentially and acts on the directions it provides. The assembler requires a detailed sequence of control signals, just as the ribosome requires mRNA to control its actions. Such detailed control signals can be provided by a computer. In other words, the technology is already here to have machines both on the nano level and macro level dash self-replicating. This is a very important step toward the singularity. The above is, of course, a very simplistic way of defining nanotechnology because it is so much more complicated than this. But I am trying to be as non-technical as possible. Those who want to learn more on a scientific level can find many good scientific references on the internet. Now that we have covered the basics, it is time to see what mainstream media are telling us about nanotechnology and its progress in the scientific community. So, nanotechnology in the mainstream media. In a report from Russia Today at the beginning of 2015, in an article titled Enter the Matrix, two scientists were interviewed explaining what allegedly are the latest results from their research into how hair-thin fiber optic cables dash each thin cable having seven different channels and functions can be inserted into the brain and interact with the neurological system in humans. The application of this, claims a female scientist, is to, for example, cure neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's. See how they bring everything under the disguise of curing diseases. But this curing diseases is nothing more than just a facade, a mask behind the actual reason that they are using these technologies for. They lie in actuality, but they bring every single thing under the disguise of we are doing this to cure diseases, to create better health for you humans, for curing the issues of climate or whatever issue that they are using as disguise, as mask behind the use of all these technologies. Yeah. So by inserting fiber cables into the brain and have those interact with the neurological pathways, it will be possible either to cure Alzheimer's or at the least make such persons much more functional. Well, in the first and foremost place, we need to ask why Alzheimer's disease in actuality has been instigated. Because many diseases, my lovely brothers and sisters, are deliberately created specifically for the rollout of this evil agenda called singularity-metaverse. Yeah, keep this in mind. This sounds as if it is a good idea, but the reporter is clever and asks some good questions. The first thing that came to his mind apparently was the similarities to the Matrix series, where cables were inserted into people's brains, upon which they could experience a virtual reality where anything is possible, dash, even to bypass the laws of physics as we know them from modern science. The interviewer asks the scientist if this technique can be used for mind control. The scientist laughs it off, of course, and says that the technique they are developing is too simplistic to be used for mind control. These scientists are trained and programmed to come with such answers because they darn well know that what they are doing is part of the mind control agenda. But in the future, we will probably be able to do it. Well, if you know that everything takes place at the same time, when this scientist was saying in the future, it was in actuality saying, yes, it can be used for mind control purposes because everything happens at the same time. We cannot speak of future because in actuality, future does not exist. Is she implying that science is going in that direction? If it was a slip of the tongue or not is difficult to say, but either way, she is acknowledging that in the future we will have the ability to mind control people with nanotechnology. The main reason I am bringing up this particular report is because it was released in the early part of 2015, and in comparison to what would be exposed just about 5 to 6 months later in mainstream media, this report was quite premature, although not insignificant. As a side note, I do not know who was starting to use the word matrix as a term for the physical universe, when the word actually means mother, as in the creatrix of the universe. Ma stands for mother, and trix can perhaps easiest be explained as a female suffix, as in creatrix. So matrix has now become such a common term for Enki's physical universe that everybody has adopted it. So we are living in Enki's physical universe, yeah, which is called matrix. And Enki's physical universe is in actuality also an copy, so to say, of the actual universe that we were in when we were living in the time and frame of Tiamat. Yeah. Nanotechnology and fertility. In a separate chapter, we are going to delve deeper into how the media are promoting nanotechnology and AI to the public with the purpose to give us the impression that this technology can benefit us in major ways. Does it? No, it does not benefit us at all, in no way, shape, or form. Nonetheless, I want to give the readers some examples of how nanotechnology already now is going to be used in the medical field to enhance our standard of living. They make it all sound good, and indeed, some of this technology will have beneficial effects on people who suffer and in other ways have issues they want to resolve, such as fertility. But maybe we just need to change the tables here and start to understand why all this is happening. We need to remember whom we truly are. We are not what is being told to us. We are not what is being demonstrated to us that we are. Much of this information will appeal to people who either have the conditions themselves or know somebody else who does. Because of different factors such as chemicals, comma, GMO food, comma, chemtrails, comma, and radiation from nuclear accidents, comma, secret testing of nuclear weapons, comma, poisoning of the planet, comma, and other secret projects that the administrators and their minions and proxies in the military industrial complex are conducting on the planet and on mankind, comma, fertility in both men and women has been affected. So couples who wish to have children sometimes spend a fortune trying everything possible in the medical field in order for the woman to become pregnant. At times it works, other times it does not. Fewer and fewer people can have children of their own. Men's sperms are becoming useless in more and more cases, and women in their most fertile age cannot make the sperm stick to the egg, or they have miscarriages. And all those people who do not realize, by carrying their military weapon known as so-called smart-I phone, which they carry in the pocket of their trousers. Males do this, and they have this weapon again, well, directly next to their testicles. So this machine fries their testicles, and the same for ladies. You are frying your entire uh, fertility system. All right, we are told that research has been done in this field, and people are holding their breath, hoping a breakthrough is on the horizon. So here we have this so-called Hegelian dialect. They are creating all sorts of diseases, poisoning the tap water, poisoning the natural water, poisoning the food, poisoning the soil, and then they sit back, all these proxies and minions of Enki and Marduk, they sit back on their fat asses, wait, and then see that humans have problems. Then the humans come to them, and what happens? They roll out their solutions, which are, of course, solutions that do not benefit us humans at all. And so they can roll out their technological agendas and use life forms such as humans and animals and nature as guinea pigs. Lo and behold, in spite of many skeptics' pessimistic predictions that something revolutionary will develop anytime soon in this field, a breakthrough may now be just around the corner, at least if the infertility is on the male's end. If the woman is fertile, but the man has slow swimming sperms, which is the most common reason for infertility, um, what may be one solution is now presented in the media. The Daily Mail published an article from January the 13th, 2006, that reads as follows: Microscopic machines propel slow swimming sperm toward the egg. One of the 5 men have been diagnosed with slow swimmers, which makes low sperm motility a leading cause of infertility. Artificial insemination, artificial insemination and reproduction technologies are options, but the average success rate is under 30%. In order to beat the odds, a group of researchers are developing sperm bots, which could act as a motor that pushes the sperm towards the egg. Researchers from the Institute for Integrative Nanosciences at IFW Dresden used a tiny magnet, made of titanium and nickel to create the metal helices. The coil is just big enough to wrap around the tail of the sperm and mimics a microscopic motor by propelling the sperm to the egg with the use of a rotating magnetic field. So after the sperm makes contact with an egg, it wiggles itself inside and out of the sperm bot. Researchers have reported success during testing, as these sperm bots have shown they can be directed to slide on the sperm's tail and travel to the egg in a petri dish. Even though the devices are in early stages, researchers have noted they are not overly harmful to sperm. And note that this book that I'm reading from is from 2016, so this is already upgraded to the newest updates. So this technology is already upgraded. So it is harmful to the sperm, but ultimately further testing has to be done to determine how safe they are for human subjects and how effective it will be for patients. During this process, a woman's eggs are removed from her ovaries with a needle, then fertilized in a petri dish and then transferred back to the uterus or a surrogate for a few days. And a few days later, then they will see the result. So my point, which is the point of the writer itself, Wes Penry, with this is not to show the current success rate despite many people's excitement about this, but to expose where science in general is heading these days, which is toward robotic solutions to human problems. Nanotechnology is the cornerstone of what will become the singularity in about 30 years. If Kurzweil's wet dream prediction is correct. So Kurzweil claims that the singularity will be accomplished by 2045. So now you get the understanding why they are in such a hurry. In the meantime, they have to put hope in the general population for the future of this generation and the next. People in general People in general want a world without disease, with vitally with vitality and a long life. Some would even vote for immortality if possible. Humanity is not realizing that living in a world without disease is in actuality not possible. But uh, there shall always be disease, because the overlords shall give their proxies and minions the the task to create diseases in laboratories. Why? So that they can upgrade the vaccines. Yeah? Because the vaccines are loaded with nanotechnology and other forms of technology. And technology always needs to be upgraded. So they need to find a way to have these technologies in the human bodies upgraded. How can you do this? By creating disease. So living in a diseaseless world is an illusion, is a deception that humans are falling prey to, and are falsely believing that this can exist. I know this, the reader knows this, and of course the overlords know this. An imperative part of the propaganda machine is to convince people that science has the answers to all their problems. And we see this already being played out for several decades now. And we see it now more obviously after and since the 2020 rollout. Although spokespersons for the AI movement suggest a so-called balanced discussion, fear of death and long-term painful diseases will make many people blind to the negative side of the singularity and embrace an eternal, vital life in the physical plane to avoid death and not being sure what is going to happen afterward, if anything. The controllers want the population falsely falsely to believe that the utopia that has almost forever been the holy grail, the false holy grail of the oppressed masses, will now come true, to make people believe that we are about to achieve health and eternal life. Well, better said, a false health and a false eternal life. A huge propaganda machine needs to be set up while the real planning is taking place in secret, behind locked doors. All right. Besides promoting a solution that people want, they also have to make things worse in the world in order to win over the fence sitters. So now you get really hear the answer that every single event in this world is deliberately created to push us humans and thus our human soul fire into the singularity-metaverse. Yes, now you get the agendas. So all these fake agendas about saving Earth, about the climate disasters and whatever bullshit the overlords have told their proxies and minions here on Earth to instigate are nothing more than just agendas to accomplish this singularity agenda. This is one of the reasons why authorities create severe environmental issues, because not all of these wildfires are natural. I truly believe, after so many decades, that many of these so-called natural causes, such as hurricanes and wildfires, are in actuality deliberately instigated. They wanna destroy the entire living library called planet, so-called Earth, which in actuality is a leftover of Tiamat, planet Tiamat. They want to destroy the entire living library. Why? So that those of us who do not want to participate in these awful and destructive evil agendas are getting it more harsh to find remedies in nature and to commune with nature. That is why this war on homeopathics is still ongoing. They don't want us to use that. They are pushing us into synthetic food. So now you get the understanding why the war on farmers is going on. They want to destroy every single thing. They want to have us on laboratory produced food that never ever has seen daylight nor soil. This is one of the reasons why authorities create severe environmental issues, mind-controlled people to do school and mall shootings in random places, instigate wars and viral diseases, create cancers and announce cancer risks, in addition to taking other undesirable and fear-mongering actions. So the general population has a difficult time grasping how the government they think they have voted in can commit such destructive and insane acts, when these acts are obviously putting the entire future of mankind in jeopardy. Most people, however, just wonder about these issues in silence or briefly discuss them with family and friends, for as long as this is possible, because the majority of our friends and family members are already so indoctrinated that they hardly have difficulties with understanding that this is going on, that everything is deliberately done and instigated and created. Then it stops there. When people mention it to others, the fear mechanism is triggered in the others, and a snowball effect sometimes takes place. This is, of course, part of the plan. The goal with a propaganda program is typically to create fear, but after the initial fear-mongering, they want us to do the main job, which is to spread the fear amongst each other. It works better than a fast-spreading virus. When enough fear and chaos has been purposely perpetrated, it is time to come up with the so-called solution, which in the long term is the singularity. Many readers have probably heard of the following formula applied on the masses by the controllers, but I will repeat it here because it is so important to understand. It works on us like a charm. The formula looks like this: problem dash reaction dash solution. Some are calling this the Hegelian dialect because of this person called Hegel, who thought that he came with something new, but in actuality, this problem, reaction, solution is thousands of years old. So the authorities, the emissaries create a problem that people do not know was purposely created by them. E.G, the environmental issues mentioned above, then there is a reaction from the public that the authorities must do something about it. Finally, the so-called authorities come up with the so-called solution to the problem that they themselves initiated. So the solution is always a further push toward the global agenda, a step in the progress that would have been hard to accomplish if the fear button in the population hadn't been pushed first. This formula is brilliant because it has more than one application. By demanding that the government or some other so-called authority solves the problem, we also give our power away, which makes them stronger and us weaker. They draw energy slash life force from the rest of us, which is the definition of vampirism. Again, they, the controllers, the overlords, the AIF or alien invader force, also known as the Archontic invader force, they draw energy slash life force from the rest of us, which is the definition of vampirism. So for those who want to read more extensively about nanotechnology and the agenda from a scientific viewpoint, just to know how they think, there is a great 400-page counting summary in something titled The NBIC Report, which stands for Nanotechnology, Biotechnology, Information Technology, and Cognitive Science. It comes out of the Netherlands and is a compilation of many writers writing on these subjects and was written in 2003. 3. It can be downloaded in PDF at the following web address: http www.wtec.org/converging-technologies/report/NBIC spatial report.pdf. And with this said, I have come to the end of reading this chapter. So I would highly suggest you to go to the website links in the text box, where you can for free download this PDF of the book that I'm reading from, Synthetic Superintelligence and the Transmutation of Humankind. You can see the picture I have added in the today's picture. You can download this PDF for free. Do so, start reading it yourself, or buy the book yourself if you love a paper version of it. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Let all this information sink into you and get a deeper understanding of the world that you are living in and all the things that are happening in this world. They are happening with a reason and for a reason, and that main reason is to push as much as possible of our divine soul fire into singularity and thus metaverse, and have as much as possible of our soul fire captured for permanent in singularity and thus in metaverse and thus in technology. Brothers and sisters, there is no immortal life with technology. The immortal life that you want is a fake one and does not exist. There does exist immortal life, but then you need to know and to realize that that immortal life is a more natural one and only can be done by detaching yourselves from all these destructive timelines, and also by, when you are dying, by finding grids, by finding holes in the grid, I must say. And if you go through one of these holes, you can leave this world and come back into the spiritual universe. And then you will have this immortal life. Immortalness is not being reached through technology. This is fake. This is a bait that is being used by the overlords, the controllers of this world. Yeah, they give us humans this candy in front of us, and there are too many of us falling for this candy bait. All right, thank you so much for listening to this live book reading today. What I've said, I will do 2 others. I take a break from this one, and later on I will come back with a chapter from the book of The Story of Isis and the War on Bloodlines, also written by Wes Penry. And then we continue with chapter 9, which is all about the priory of Zion. And what that means, And the third reading I will do today is all about the living library. Uh, and I need to give some overview about what that is. All right, coming from another book. Okay, thank you so much again, and I wish you all a beautiful day filled with a lot of joy, love, and true wisdom coming from your own spirit and DNA, and also true revelations that your spirit and thus your DNA will give to you. Ponder upon all the things that you have heard this morning, afternoon, or evening. So let us go to a short piece of music titled Hope. See you next time, and thank you for tuning in through Facebook, through Rumble, and through YouTube. See you.